Thank you, Wayne. Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join and stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Snyder. Thank you. First item is the approval of the minutes. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Couldn't find any errors at all.
That's typical.
2 for 2.
We have a motion for approval.
Move the approved as printed.
Mr. Rosito. Mr. Abbey.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Minutes have been approved. The planning board will accept public comment on any active application that's currently before the board. So if you'd like to address anything, please feel free to come up and share your thoughts. Anybody like to come up? If nobody's approached, we will close the public input and move on to the first item on the agenda. This is Kenwood Home. This is for 2-lot minor subdivision in Wellington Meadows. Tim Boyer is here representing the applicant. Anthony? Everyone hear me?
Good evening, Tim Coyer, iNews and Romans Land Surveying. We were here a few months ago for this particular project. I don't know if you remember, previously we brought a plan in where we potentially were going to abandon the roadway in front of specifically lots 128 and 127 up here. If you remember, the original subdivision map called these 128A and 127A and put a restriction on those lots that they weren't allowed to be building lots until they were able to push through and get this proposed hammerhead that was shown on that map. Basically, over the years, they still haven't been able to get to someone to agree to purchase the property. We haven't been able to put that easement in, so we haven't been able to extend the road through here and put that in, so they haven't been allowed as building lots. What we're hoping to do with this plan is basically allow them to be building lots. We talked to the highway department, and basically they're allowing us to put a driveway off here for 127. We could go like this, and a driveway here for 128. Highway department's going to continue to plow the road as they continue to. Right now, nothing changes for the highway department. It'll be up to the owners of 128 and 127 to specifically take care of any snow removal and everything. And I don't know if you saw the most up-to-date map, which I did hand out to you. I added a couple of notes per Mark Parrish's comments, basically saying that these lots remain dedicated, or that the road in front of them, in front of the lot, remains dedicated to the town of Cicero, and the physical road may be constructed in the future, requiring relocation of the private drive. And I added the actual physical location of those proposed drives to the map so that you could see where they would be proposed in the future. Basically the idea is with this driveway going in here like this, in this area, if and when in the future someday that this road does get pushed out, you know, they're responsible, that they know that the driveway is going to go away and the road's going to push through there. And it kind of helps save the town. Are there any, I think that's basically it for this. I know it's a little convoluted, but I'm open to any questions that the board might have.
Thank you, Tim. We'll open it up to questions. Mr. Rosito.
I understand. So in front of 27, 127, 128, theoretically, the driveway comes out into the road.
Yeah, so, and again, I handed out that small sheet, and on there I labeled where proposed driveway for 127 and the proposed driveway for 128. So again, 127 is going to come off here extended. So there's going to be some driveway here, and then it's going to 90 up into the 127. So 127 is going to have a quote unquote extra long driveway.
So would either of those lots ever get a house built on it without extending the road?
Without extending, yes, that's the whole idea. So if we,
So then I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So assume it doesn't get extended, the snow's going to get their driveway, and they have to take care of it.
and they have to take care of it. The highway department was okay with that now.
Mark, did you have conversation directly with Chris, highway superintendent? That help, Joe?
Yep. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Abbey?
I also had some concerns about the snow. I could see Plows coming around and swinging to the left and dumping more snow than the visual could handle. So if they can't get in, they're gonna start parking their cars on the curb. Certainly not an ideal situation.
No, it's definitely not ideal. That, I agree with you.
Spoke to the highway department. And go along with it, I guess. Fine with me.
What was the last part, Chuck? I couldn't hear you.
That's fine with me.
You right?
As long as it's with the highway department.
Mr. Snyder?
I have a totally different concern. They don't own the road. Their driveways go in the road. Question for the assessor, who of course is not here tonight, is are they going to get assessed for the land on which their driveway currently sets? Because they really shouldn't. But I could see where we might be creating a problem for the two owners of these two pieces of property paying for roadway because of the way the developer put the thing together. Snow is a problem that they're gonna, hopefully the developer will be honest with the potential purchaser of these two lots and let them know what really will be their situation
Right.
on the first snowfall.
Nope, I agree.
But I'm also would be concerned about how the assessing is going to go of the two properties.
Assessment's based on fair market value, right? Probably does not add value. Probably does not add value. No.
No, it's not our decision. It's not in our purview, but they may end up paying taxes on a piece of road that 10 years from now, they turn into a public road. And I just think it's a bad idea. I mean, that's it.
Mr. Blas?
My concern is that that road right away in front of those two pieces of property, what's our liability on that? somebody gets hurt in our right of way, the town's right of way.
Mr. Marzio? Neil, does there have to be an agreement in place with the town for them to have the right to utilize that as a private driveway? Um, I agree with Mr. Snyder that full disclosure needs to happen, and it seems like, maybe, Mark, would you remember with wetlands or something, we would actually have it on the survey or acknowledged somewhere so that the, on this map, but would it be on their survey? Seems like we did once at some point. Tim, have you got any thoughts on that
Now-
topic?
Like, if we do the plot plan, most likely we're doing the survey and the plot plan. I would be showing specifically that note, and I would be showing the proposed driveway on the plot plans. Now, I'm not going to say 100% that I'm personally going to be doing the plot plans. Most likely I am. I did every single one that's been in this subdivision. And again, maybe it's something where Steve in the codes office, before they issue a building permit, they make sure whatever plot plan comes in for the building permit has both the driveway and a note on there specifically stating the situation out there before they can pull a building permit and build a house. Now, devil's advocate, do the property owners look at the plot plans? Hopefully, but again, that's as much as I can do, and I try to typically put on the wetland notes. I try to put as much information on my plot plans as I possibly can. But again, it is not the ideal situation.
Neil, could the approval process require that? It'd be put on the plot plan? Then the only other comment I would have, it really doesn't have anything to do with planning, but I know that in the past, when there's private driveways longer than this, the insurance companies have required the homeowners provide some kind of a maintenance agreement I don't know whether or not that would pertain here, but just as a point of interest, I'd point that out. Steve, anything? Yeah? Mark, any other thoughts or comments? Neil, does it need seeker? Joe, would you propose a standard seeker this year? For the second? Mr. Rossito?
Yeah.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval? Make that in the form of a motion. Does anybody want a second?
Second.
Mr. Rossito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Hesitantly, but yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda, this is a PUD request presentation for Michael Astorino. We're here, I think, the last meeting, you wanted to come in one more time to do a presentation.
Good evening, Tim Coyer, I News and Romans. Yes, after last presentation, last meeting, specifically Mike wanted to make sure he was here. Unfortunately, he had something come up. He wasn't able to make the last meeting. And there was a couple of concerns and just general concerns that the board had. And I wanted to try and address them and make sure we were all on the same page so we could try to move this forward. What I did bring in for an example project is the Inverness Garden project that's in Clay. That's a PDD that's in Clay. And I wanted to kind of explain the situation with this project that we go through every time. And previously, if you remember, we're hoping to do something very, very similar to this project with Mr. Astorino's project, where specifically you have a mixture of single-family residences and duplex or townhouse residents. And I explained last time that we would like to, in the future, possibly switch a duplex for a single-family residence. Now, I know that got the board a little worried that we were just going to kind of go willy-nilly and do whatever we wanted. We cannot do whatever we want. I just want to make sure that's very clear. So in this process, what we do is we have an approved concept plan that is approved by the town board and the planning board. Okay, and this plan, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, has been revised several times. Now, some of those revisions are to the commercial property up front, and some of those revisions are to the single-family / duplexes in the back. Every time we want to go in and revise one of the single families to a duplex or the duplex to a single family, we have to come back in front of the town board and potentially the planning board as well to get that approved before we can even do anything else. And then we have to put a revision to this map. This map has to get back and refiled with the town. And every time we do that, that is the same process. So it's not like we can just change things on our own. We have to get the town's approval prior to doing anything like that. So hopefully that kind of explains that situation as far as switching from a townhouse unit to a single family unit, and it hopefully gives the board a little more confidence in what we're trying to do. And again, like for Inverness Gardens, we did this in different sections. And every time we came in with a section, we probably did like 10 lots or something like that. So we did a section, I think here, and we had to come back in front of the board for a final plan section to get approved, and it showed all the single family / residential townhouses that we were going to get approved for that section. And if there were any changes, we had to get the concept plan approved prior to coming in to any type of final plan approval. So no matter what, we always have to get this concept plan reapproved if there are any changes to the PDD. I also handed out like the PDD packet that for Inverness, and it's 33 pages of basically the rules and regulations and what's allowed. I mean, it gets into landscaping, it gets into what's allowed in the commercial. I mean, this one has a big commercial area up front, so we're not going to get into the commercial part of it, but it has a whole bunch of rules and regulations for what's allowed and setback restrictions and all that. And again, that whole packet is approved between town board, planning board, and us, and we kind of build this project together and come up with a set of rules that everyone's comfortable with, so we can have a nice project for the community. The other concern that I want to go over that specifically was the New York State DOT in the White Pines project. I reached back out to the state DOT, and they are still approving. They didn't necessarily take into account the White Pines project, but per his email, basically and I don't know if you noticed this, but our approval for the entrance onto Route 31 is a restricted entrance. We have right in, right out, and a left out only. We do not have left in. So let's say someday in the future after build out, we want to get that left out approved, we would have to go through a whole new traffic study and go back through the DOT and possibly get that approved. But right now, included with the White Pine, they're fine with the 120 units that we're proposing for this project with Astrino with the restricted access that we have. I believe that was most of the concerns, and one of the final concerns I believe was Mr. Schneider brought up the roadways being public or private and all that. We don't have a problem making the roads totally public and just having still the single I want to call them postage stamp lots. So you'd have the public road go through, but then you'd have still the postage stamp lots. We don't have a problem doing that. To be honest, I thought, and we thought that it was a little more appealing with the town to have a private infrastructure so that the quote unquote overall cost wasn't as much. But again, if the town thinks it's more favorable to have a public road system in there, we're not against that at all. We just want to make sure that's very clear with the board. I'm all set. Again, the whole point of this presentation tonight is we want to get a good feel from this board. We want to submit a formal application to the town, but we don't want to do that if there's more concerns than there are people agreeable with it, I guess.
Mr. Snyder, I think your concern with the roads were that they are at least built to town standard. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, if we're gonna plow them, they gotta be built to town standard. The problem we had with the first presentation was the public road was the straight shot that came in off of 31,
Mhm.
and then we went to private, and there was no way for our plows to turn around. What do they do with the snow when they get to the end of the straight section? So if we're talking about doing them as a town standard for roads, then obviously we don't have the same problem. I just wonder, as I say that though, is the PUD taxing situation such that it's different than a housing development? So we're asking the highway people to plow a hell of a lot of road, but will it not be able to be covered by the budget that is created, the income that's created by this property? Not our direct concern, but as a citizen of the town,
Gotcha.
it concerns me.
I have a question for you, Don. Are you opposed to them bringing private roads but built to town standards?
No, that was the thing that I said, that
Right.
because we all are gone 10 years, 15 years from now, and somebody comes in and says, we're going to give these roads to you, and they're built not to our standard, and they're usually crap. And we've got a couple of them in the area that concern, well, we had some built supposedly to stay to our standard, and they're falling apart.
So what you were suggesting is if they are done as private roads, that they be built to town standards?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought he meant.
Okay, that's what I thought he meant as well.
Good.
Other than that,
Yeah, we'll open up the questions on Mr. Rosito.
No, you answered that the road was one issue, and then going back and forth on the 1 and 2 family. That's much clearer.
Mr. Abbey?
I was curious, without counting too close, in the apartment buildings there, there's like 6 of them there. What was the parking percentage based on?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the whole thing.
And the parking for the apartments?
Oh,
Um,
so usually we try to go two parking
Okay,
spaces
what-
per unit.
2 is good.
Should be more than two.
Okay, we can definitely look into that and maybe revise the plan some.
2.5 now we look for, right, Don?
Is it 2.5 now?
Two is,
2?
two is. We know that 2 is barely enough, because everybody has a car. And, there's no restriction on who can rent these apartments.
No.
So it can be mom and dad and their 16-year-old son, so there's 3 cars sitting there. That's how we get into problem, or someone's coming to visit. If everyone's got 2 cars, and
Right.
we're in trouble.
No, and I just want to point out, like, we are getting into a lot of the site plan discussions that we're going to have to come in with much more detailed plans for the board, and as far as parking numbers and parking calculations and all that. Tonight, and I'm hoping is more just the general overall project. How does the board feel for the, we definitely are going to meet all those requirements and concerns as far as parking in the buildings. And again, the buildings that we show are just general building. We don't have architecturals yet. We're just showing roughly where they would go, roughly how the parking could be set up. And we just mostly are looking for the general overall feel from the board.
Are there sidewalks built into the housing area?
I don't think we show any sidewalks.
A lot of people are out walking their dogs and stuff.
Well, yeah, can Mark, can you switch to our plan? Do you have that? It was the same one that we had last time. Yeah, you can just do one of those. That's good. Okay. So right now we don't have any sidewalks shown in here. This is a very typical, subdivision setup where the houses all have individual driveways. And over in here, we have some sidewalks in the apartment complex area.
Mhm.
Again, a lot of that kind of detail stuff we can talk about, and when we get into the official application and site plan project part of it. But yeah.
Thank you.
Snyder?
So the main reason I'm trying to educate myself on PUDs, and that's another issue. We're mainly looking at a PUD because we're looking at changing lot size for the individual houses.
I guess that's one reason
Do
of
we
it.
have a reason to believe that you want to put apartments in that exceed our current height for building?
We can't, again, like heights and all that kind of information. We can't get that approved. We have to all come to an approved concept plan with those details and everything before we get any type of PUD approval. So we don't get the approval until we go through all these details.
Well, but I guess I'm a little lost.
So I think what Mr. Snyder is saying is that when you come back with a detailed plan, you're not going to be asking
Oh,
for a higher density than
No.
would be required in residential multifamily
No.
or buildings that are taller than would be regulated in.
Or
our-
parking, no, everything's going to meet basically the standard code. And again, the number of units that we have shown here specifically with the apartments and the residential meet the current code for like an R apartment zoning with the 6550 square footage. I think that's what it is. The density, 5,500, okay. So basically I did the calculation, like a typical, if we were going to go for our apartment, and again, that would be our other option, is to go our apartment. Same exact amount of units, it's just our apartment versus PUD. We're not trying to get any additional units by going PUD. We're not trying to get any additional code requirements with the PUD. It's going to be basically like an our apartment project and similar code requirements.
I guess I'm not sure why you're asking for a PUD.
Michael Estorino. I've been a real estate agent for 36 years out here. So the reason we're asking for a PUD is that the real estate market changes fast. You remember we were building the McMansions and all these big homes, and then all of a sudden, everybody now sizes down. So what we want to do here in the real estate community is we want to build an actual community where everybody will love it, and it's exclusive enough with the way its entrance is off 31 that it'll be, a handsome community. We want to be able to say, if the townhouse market is hot, we want to continue with townhouse markets, townhouse build. If we think that people aren't interested in a small single-family patio home, we want to be able to tell them, yes, we can still do that, all in this same community. So the real estate market changes quickly. By the time you take to build a house today, 6 months, it could be, something else on the marketplace. But we think that this kind of a concept is new to Cicero, but it's done other places, and it'll be a beautiful, handsome, a place that people would want to live. So, and we will meet all the code requirements as far as parking and stuff like that. I would like to clarify with the board, though, the road, can it be built to the neighboring town's standard, the town of Clay versus the town of Cicero's, as long as it's not a public road? So we're going to set up a reserve maintenance accounts for this road to be taken care of in the future. So that's going to be all private drives. But if we could build it to town of Clay's road spec, we would rather do that
Why is that?
because it's less costly. And this is a smaller circle that we're not going to get a lot of through fare, and we're not going to have a lot of trucks. It's, where you got different developments. And we have worked with the town of Clay. We've worked in the town of Cicero, and frankly, it's economics.
I think it's safe to say that I think our highway people would say, if they're going to plow it, then they're going to be built to our standard. If you're saying,
I'm good with that.
if you're saying you're not going to plow it, I mean, you
We're
will
plowing.
plow it, then I guess there's a minimum code that,
Yeah, we're going to plow it. We're going to maintain it. See, we're going to offer some amenities here that customers don't have. I think when we approached the town board, there was a couple members that were really excited that we're thinking of townhouses because he thinks that there's a demand for townhouses. I think in a community like this, you can sprinkle in some nice single-family, small ranch-style houses that will be very attractive and fit right in with the rest of the design. So if we are plowing it and maintaining it, we want to, rather spec it to neighboring versus the Cicero. And if you're interested in having it the public road, then obviously we would do that. We're going to meet all the code requirements. We're here after the concept to make sure that kind of everybody's on board. And the reason we're going PUD is real estate changes quickly. What's the market hot this summer for may change by next summer.
so this community in your head will be a private community, private roads. You will maintain them and you will plow them.
Correct. That's the way we think. That's the direction that is favorable to both town board and the planning board. That's my understanding. So I'm here to answer those questions if,
Yeah, it depends. If I wake up on the first day of a snowplow and your contractor doesn't show up to plow the roads, then the phone's going to ring at our highway department and he's going to have to be a jerk and say, well, you're on a private road. We don't plow your road.
we're going to model
You
this.
can't.
We're going to model this after a very successful neighborhood out in Manlius, Erie Village. They have the same kind of situation. So I know that there's a lot of things that could happen, but I really only want to, move forward with the things that we know we can control. So we're going to have an HOA that hires a contractor, make sure he shows up, he's dependable, all that kind of stuff. We'll probably also have vendors that will take care of lawn and snow removal privately for their driveways. The idea is to build a community. I think it's in a great location, and I think there's a great mixed use there.
No, you don't see any commercial in this community? I mean,
No, no, sir.
no.
No, not right now. No, I mean, we're showing all residential. Our meetings with the DOT said that if we got past 250 units, we would have to widen the Route 31. So we've kept it well below the units that they're looking for. We want to be able to say, hey, you know, we're going to use this space and meet code and take out a few townhouses and add one more apartment building if the demand, you know, down the road is there. But we want to be able to be light on our feet so we have options. And I've done this a long time, so I've, you know, grown up here. You know, my mentor's the chair. He taught me the business, so.
Okay, I just need, I just need to make sure that we are creating a community that is easy for our codes people to deal with, easy for our assessor to deal with, and pays for itself.
And just going back to your commercial question, all those lots along Route 31 are currently commercial. And actually, I think this community would help drive those commercial properties into being developed into commercial properties.
You know, I was thinking the one thing I would want, I guess, if I lived in this little community, is I'd like a Stop and Shop, you know, where I can stop and get bread and milk because I forgot to get it, you know, when I left in the morning. You know, a commercial, I don't mean a, you know, Wegmans or
I see
anything
what you're
like
saying.
that, but I mean,
Mr. Blas.
What kind of price ranges are we looking at for these properties?
Well,
You never know. Next year I may be looking for a different place.
I tell my customers, new home change, lumber price. Probably going to be. Yeah. Yeah, we're hoping.
Marizio?
my questions, but I would like to see sidewalks along the roads.
Okay.
Maybe like this, I think it's.
Trying to make it look like a residential community.
Good, Mike? I'm set too. I'm looking forward to seeing the details. And I would like to emphasize, we talked about the last meeting, Mr. Snyder talked about here, that it'll be important to us that we're not exceeding the regulations for RM as far
Oh,
as
yeah.
density and that kind of thing, but you know that already.
Yes.
Mr. Jermaine, have you got anything else? Parrish?
I really appreciate you guys having us back on here so we can go through that.
Thank you. On the item is Odessa Syracuse is back for their site plan of a relocation of the guard shack.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Van Heis with Kimley Horn on behalf of the applicant Odessa. I was before you at the July 7th meeting. Based on that meeting and the comments from Mr. Parrish, we revised the plan, which was minor in nature, mostly notes and additional dimensioning. We were also asked to provide some photographs of the existing shack because the relocated shack will look very similar to that. Which we've done. That was part of what we made those revisions, and that's part of what was most recently reviewed. Since then, we've received the resolution of no impact from the County Planning Board. We also received the permit to occupy the OCWA easement on the 26th of July. And we've responded, as I said, to Mr. Parrish's comments. Here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Mr. Rosito, any questions? Mr. Abbey?
All set also, thank you.
Snyder? I'm good. Ross?
All set, thank you.
Marizio? I am all set as well. Steve? Yeah. Mark? Joe, would you propose the standard seeker? We have a second? Who did that? Seconded by Mr. Snyder. Mr. Rosito? Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval? Anybody like to make that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Rosito?
Yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with it. That concludes our agenda items. Is there any discussion from the board? Yes, sir.
There's one thing I wanted to mention to Steve in particular. I just kind of emphasized tonight as I went by on the north end of Tapman Road where it meets Northern Boulevard. Okay, the old George Farmstead right there. It's, I'm sure it's agricultural zone, but whoever's in there has decided to turn it into a boat repair. Tonight I counted at least 6 boats, some in total junk condition, at least a dozen outboard motors hanging out and, section repair and parts all over the place, turned into a boat junkyard. So is it something you're going to look into? Because on that property? On Thompson? I wondered about that. Okay, because it's really a dump. And I can say that the owner isn't happy about it whatsoever either.
Right. Got it, Chuck?
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
Anybody else? Mike, Steve?
Update you on a couple of those other.
Good.
Sign, they do want to move forward. So we'll let them know that. I'll be down, be on this.
Thank you. Yeah. Mark? We have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Meeting adjourned.
You beat him.
3 seconds.